Every woman wants a man like me. Duke Adrian Viermont said it while raising his wine glass. Not joking, not laughing, actually believing it, which somehow made it infinitely worse. The words drifted across the banquet hall beneath crystal chandeliers and warm candlelight, while nobles smiled politely around long tables. Tonight marked Adrian and Rosalie's 4th wedding anniversary. A celebration, at least in theory. Music played softly. Servants moved through rows of guests. People laughed. People toasted. People pretended happiness sat naturally inside expensive rooms. Across the table, Lucien slowly lowered his drink. Interesting. Very interesting. Because Lucien had developed a specific expression over years. A particular expression appearing moments before Adrian accidentally destroyed his own life. He called it the disaster face. And currently, very unfortunately, he was wearing it. What? Lucien asked carefully. Did you just say? Adrian looked confused. What? Rosalie sat beside him quietly. Too quietly. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Because Rosalie rarely interrupted conversations. But when Rosalie became silent, people eventually regretted things. Adrian leaned back casually. I merely said every woman wants a man like me. Lucien stared. No. Silence. Then. No, absolutely not. Adrian frowned. What exactly is wrong with that? Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Because now several nearby guests had stopped speaking. Excellent. The evening was progressing magnificently. The conversation itself began 10 minutes earlier. Lord Harrington had recently announced his engagement. Young, wealthy, hopelessly dramatic. The sort of man believing poetry fixed everything. Marriage feels extraordinary, Harrington announced proudly. Several guests smiled politely. Adrian sipped wine. Interesting. Very interesting. Because Rosalie smiled at Harrington immediately. Warmly. Genuinely. You look happy, she said. I am. Harrington laughed. I keep expecting her to realize she made a mistake. Guests laughed softly. Then Adrian shrugged. Strange concern. Harrington looked confused. What? Adrian gestured lazily. You're young. Silence. You're dramatic. Another pause. You write poetry. Harrington blinked. Guests immediately looked interested. Excellent. Absolute disaster approaching. Women enjoy confidence, Adrian continued. Stability. A small smile touched his face. Every woman wants a man like me. There. The sentence. The mistake. The beginning. Rosalie looked toward him slowly. Very slowly. Interesting. Very interesting. Because Adrian immediately recognized something in her expression. Not anger. Not hurt. Something quieter. Something much worse. Disappointment. Deep disappointment. You believe that. Her voice remained gentle. Always dangerous when gentle. Adrian looked confused. Yes. Silence. Absolute silence. Then, interesting. Rosalie lifted her glass calmly. Very calmly. Too calmly. Lucien closed his eyes. Actually closed his eyes. Please stop saying interesting, he muttered. Nobody listened. 3 years earlier, Adrian met Rosalie at a summer village fair. Not dramatically. Not for families. Not for titles. Actually, he nearly walked directly into her. Literally. He remembered carrying reports while moving through crowded streets. Then suddenly colliding with someone hard enough to send flowers flying everywhere. Paper scattered. People gasped. Adrian looked up immediately and froze. Rosalie stood staring at him with flowers tangled around one sleeve. Chestnut brown hair partly escaping loose braids. Blue-green eyes wide with surprise. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed. Not politely. Not awkwardly. Actually laughed. You attacked me. Adrian blinked. What? You charged directly toward innocent civilians. I was walking. No. Rosalie pointed dramatically. You were invading. For reasons Adrian never understood. He laughed. Actually laughed. Then helped gather flowers. Then walked with her. Then looked for excuses seeing her again. And somewhere between flower markets and rainy afternoons and stolen moments, he fell in love. Real love. Dangerous love. The kind he promised himself never to touch. Back in the present, Rosalie stared into her drink quietly. Adrian looked toward her. What? Rosalie looked up. What? You're doing that thing. Silence. What thing? That thing. Excellent explanation. Wonderful. Rosalie smiled faintly. Nothing. Interesting. Very interesting. Because after 4 years Adrian knew perfectly well nothing almost never meant nothing. Almost never. Still, He let it go, because guests returned to conversations. Music continued. Dinner arrived. Life moved on, or at least Adrian assumed it did. Hours later, the banquet reached final toasts. Guests stood smiling while crystal glasses reflected warm candlelight. Lord Harrington raised his glass. To enduring marriages. People smiled, then looked toward Adrian and Rosalie. Naturally, because 4 years of marriage made them the experienced couple nearby. Lucien looked nervous suddenly. Interesting. Very interesting. Adrian stood, lifted his glass. My wife understands something important. Silence. Rosalie looked up slowly. Dangerous. Very dangerous. Marriage succeeds when unnecessary emotions stay out of practical matters. Absolute silence. Wonderful. Magnificent. Adrian continued, completely unaware of approaching death. Rosalie has always understood my responsibilities. Another pause. She knows what matters. Slowly. Very slowly. Rosalie stood. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just quietly. Adrian frowned. What are you doing? She smiled. Small. Very small. I forgot something. Silence. What? Rosalie looked at him carefully. Long enough for something uncomfortable to settle inside his chest. Then, nothing important. And she walked away. No anger. No tears. No scene. Nothing. Interesting. Very interesting. Because suddenly Adrian felt cold. Very cold. Lucien stared toward the doorway. Then toward Adrian. Then sighed. Oh no. What? Lucien looked genuinely concerned now. Actually concerned. You've reached the calm stage. Silence. Adrian frowned. What calm stage? Lucien slowly stood. The stage before she does something. Another silence. What exactly does that mean? Lucien stared at him. Long enough to become deeply uncomfortable. Then, it means, he said quietly, I think you spent so long believing Rosalie understood everything. A pause. That you forgot to ask whether she was happy. Silence. Absolute silence. Then Mrs. Fenwick entered the banquet hall holding a folded envelope. And for reasons Adrian couldn't explain, something inside his chest suddenly tightened. Because the expression on her face looked very wrong. Mrs. Fenwick stood near the banquet hall entrance holding a folded envelope. Silence stretched strangely around her. Not because letters were unusual. Because Mrs. Fenwick looked disturbed. Actually disturbed. Adrian frowned immediately. What is that? Mrs. Fenwick looked toward him carefully. For you, Your Grace. Something cold moved through Adrian's chest. Very slowly. He took the letter. Recognized the handwriting instantly. Rosalie. Interesting. Very interesting. Because Rosalie almost never wrote letters inside the same house. Almost never. Adrian unfolded it. And suddenly, everything around him disappeared. The music. The guests. The conversation. Everything. Because the words looked painfully simple. Adrian, you said every woman wants a man like you. Perhaps many do. But tonight I realized something difficult. I spent 4 years trying to become the woman who fit beside you, while slowly becoming invisible beside my own husband. You said I understand your responsibilities. You are right. I understand them very well. I understand missed dinners, missed walks, missed anniversaries, missed conversations. I understand waiting beside fireplaces until midnight. I understand watching work receive pieces of you that I stopped receiving years ago. A marriage cannot survive when one person keeps understanding and the other keeps assuming. So tonight I packed. Do not worry. I finally remembered something important. I deserve to be missed too. Rosalie. Silence. Absolute silence. Adrian stared. Then stared harder. Then read it again. No. 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 Because something about the words felt impossible. Packed. Slowly he looked up. Where is she? Mrs. Fenwick lowered her eyes. Oh no, Lucien whispered. What? Adrian. What? Lucien looked genuinely horrified now. She already left. Adrian reached the front entrance seconds later. Rain hammered stone steps outside. A carriage moved through distant gates. Far away now. Too far. Rosalie's carriage. His chest tightened sharply. Not dramatically. Not poetically. Physically. Actually physically. Because suddenly he realized something terrifying. He had spent years believing Rosalie would always remain exactly where he left her. Waiting. Understanding. Smiling. Staying. And now, for the first time, she hadn't. The next morning Vermont Hall felt wrong. Not empty. Wrong. The flowers still sat in hallways. Breakfast still arrived. Servants still worked. Everything appeared normal. Yet nothing felt normal. Interesting. Very interesting. Because Adrian kept expecting small things. Rosalie entering with coffee. Rosalie opening curtains. Rosalie asking ridiculous questions before breakfast. Do ducks know they're ducks? Why are pigeons angry? Do serious people choose sadness deliberately? Silence greeted him instead. Silence everywhere. 3 days passed. Then 7. Then 14. Adrian worked. Or pretended to. Because papers sat untouched beneath his hands. Because every room contained Rosalie somehow. The library. The gardens. The greenhouse. The east hallway where she insisted flowers changed weekly because sad hallways create sad people. God. He missed her. Not having someone beside him. Not routines. Her. Rosalie specifically. And slowly, something awful settled into place. He remembered their marriage. Actually remembered it. Not the beginning. The middle. The parts he stopped noticing. Rosalie waiting beside windows because he promised dinner. Rosalie falling asleep in chairs waiting for him to finish work. Rosalie asking for walks. Rosalie asking for time. Rosalie asking. Then eventually stopping. Oh no. Oh no. Because suddenly Adrian understood something terrible. Rosalie didn't leave because of one sentence. She left because of hundreds. Tiny ones. Invisible ones. The sentence merely happened last. 3 weeks later Lucien entered Adrian's study. Stopped. Then stared. Oh no. Adrian looked exhausted. What? You've reached the remembering stage. Silence. Adrian hated when Lucien became correct. Especially because lately he always seemed correct. I remember everything. Lucien sat opposite him quietly. No. A pause. You remember what you lost. Silence. That one landed. Hard. Because yes. That was exactly what happened. Adrian remembered flowers. Laughter. Warmth. Conversations. But most painfully, he remembered Rosalie looking at him. The way she always looked directly at him. Like he mattered. Like even difficult versions of him mattered. And suddenly Adrian realized something humiliating. He could not remember the last time he looked at her that way. 1 month later Adrian stopped waiting. Because finally, he understood something. Rosalie wasn't punishing him. She wasn't trying to hurt him. She simply reached the end of loneliness. There was a difference. A massive difference. So Adrian left Vermont Hall himself. No servants. No letters. No commands. Just himself. Because work suddenly felt very small. He found Rosalie 6 days later. Near a lakeside village in the south. Of course. Rosalie loved water. She once said lakes felt honest because they reflected exactly what stood before them. At the time Adrian barely listened. Now he remembered every word. He found her near a small marketplace helping arrange flowers outside a school building. Children ran around nearby laughing. Rosalie stood beneath sunlight wearing a pale blue dress, chestnut hair moving softly in the wind. She looked different. Not physically. Lighter. Like someone breathing properly after years holding air. Then she looked up. Saw him. Stopped. Silence stretched between them. Long. Complicated. You found me. Yes. Nothing else. No dramatic music. No tears. No speeches. Just truth standing between two people. Rosalie folded her arms lightly. You look tired. Not. Why are you here? Not. Leave. Just concern. Always concern. And suddenly Adrian nearly hated himself. Because even now, even after everything, she looked at him kindly. I owe you honesty. Rosalie waited. Good. No rescuing him. No making this easier. Good. Adrian stepped closer. I spent years believing you understood me. Silence. But I never asked what you needed. A pause. I spent years believing love meant you would stay. Another. And somewhere. His voice lowered. I stopped behaving like I needed to deserve that. Wind moved softly through trees nearby. Children laughed in the distance. Life continued. Rosalie remained still. I thought being a good husband meant providing things. A breath. The house. Another. The estate. Another. The security. Then Adrian looked directly at her. But I forgot something humiliating. Silence. What? Rosalie asked quietly. You never asked for any of it. Absolute silence. Because suddenly both of them knew it was true. Rosalie never demanded jewels. Never demanded status. Never demanded luxury. She asked for walks. Conversations. Time. Small things. Human things. Adrian swallowed. I thought every woman wanted a man like me. A small sad smile touched his face. Then I spent a month discovering something inconvenient. Rosalie blinked. What? I don't want every woman. Silence. Absolute silence. I want you. The wind softened. Rosalie looked at him quietly for a long moment. Searching. Not for perfection. For truth. Then finally, very softly. What changes? Not are you love me. Not are you sorry. Reality. Adrian answered immediately. You stop carrying us alone. A pause. I stop assuming understanding means endless patience. Another. And I stop loving you only when losing you scares me. Silence. Long. Fragile. Rosalie stared at him, then unexpectedly smiled. Small. Warm. Real. You finally noticed. Relief hit Adrian so hard he nearly laughed. Instead, Rosalie stepped forward slowly, placed her hand in his. 1 year later, Vermont Hall looked different. Not because work disappeared, not because life became easier, because Adrian changed. He left his study during dinners, walked through gardens with Rosalie, attended festivals, remembered anniversaries, asked questions, listened, and every year on their anniversary, before any toast, the Duke stood first, looked at his wife, and thanked her, not for understanding him, for staying long enough to be seen. Because Adrian eventually learned something simple. Love doesn't quietly disappear in a single night. It disappears in forgotten moments. And it survives when two people finally start noticing them again.